Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar this morning. Today's webinar is how EHR Tutor can help you teach Med-Surg. And before we begin, I'm just going to introduce myself and who else is on the call this morning. So my name is Lyra Salmon, and I am joined by Julia Gillespie, who is the Manager of Nursing Marketing, as well as Diane Yeager, who is actually the founder and creator of EHR Tutor. So before we get started this morning, I'm just going to go over a couple announcements. Due to the amount of people that we have dialed in today, we are going to ensure you guys have the best sound quality, so everybody's lines have been muted. But if you guys have any questions during the presentation today, you'll notice at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you see a little Q&A box. Feel free to fill your questions in there, and we will get to them throughout the presentation today. If we're unable to get to your question today, or if you have any questions following the webinar, you can also email us at any time at ehr@fadavis.com, and I'm going to actually pop that email address into the chat screen so you guys can take a look at it now. And finally, after the webinar today, you guys are going to notice a short survey will be provided. So we hope that you'll take a minute or two and complete that survey for us, give us some feedback, and let us know if we can help you out in any way if you have any questions about EHR Tutor or any of the text that Julia is going to bring up in the presentation. All right, so first off, I'm going to go over our agenda this morning. And to start off, we just want to say we're very excited about our partnership with EHR Tutor and finally being able to provide a really easy, customizable, and affordable charting solution for you guys that really can be utilized to support learning in the classroom as well as the sim lab and as well as in those clinical rotations. So the flexibility of EHR Tutor, which Diane and Julia will both go over, really allows this program to easily integrate across the entire nursing curriculum to really suit your needs. And because it can work with any FA Davis text, it can really be implemented in one course or an entire nursing program. But today specifically, we're going to go in and dive into more how this can help you teach Med-Surg. So here's a little overview of what we're going to cover. We're going to first hear from Julia. She's going to explain more about our Med-Surg textbooks and how they can be used in conjunction with EHR Tutor to really enhance learning and create real-world charting experiences for your students. And then you're going to hear from Diane, who is a nursing instructor herself, and she actually went on to later create EHR Tutor. She's going to give you guys a little bit of background on EHR Tutor, and then she's going to show us a brief walkthrough and kind of introduce and share a few examples of how EHR Tutor can be used to support the teachings from one of our Med-Surg textbooks and really help bring that content to life. So following the demo, we're going to answer any questions you guys have. So just remember, if you guys come up with anything that you want to know or want to go back to, feel free to just pop in those questions. And right now, I'm going to turn things over to Julia so we can go ahead and get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Lyra. Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. So let's talk a little bit about how EHR can be used during your Med-Surg course. And before we jump in any further, I'd like you to also take a minute, use the chat box or the Q&A box, whichever you're more comfortable with, and answer this question for me. How many of you are currently using an EHR during your Med-Surg course? So I'm going to give everyone a minute to share that information with me. You can see some of the responses already starting to come in. And, you know, for many of you, as I can already see, the connection between clinical sims, your sim lab, and EHR is natural. So I see a lot of instructors saying that they're using the EHR during their sim lab. They're using it during their sim lab, that their students have some exposure to an EHR when they're in their clinical rotations. A couple instructors who are not currently using an EHR in their Med-Surg course, but they think that they should be, which might be why they're joining us today. This is great. Thank you so much for sharing all of your feedback. Keep letting me know as we see this feedback come in. This really is showing that for many of you, that connection with the sim lab, with clinical even, and EHR, that's your natural connection. And many students seem to be getting their first exposure to an EHR program during their sim lab or sometime later in their nursing program. But we don't seem to have as many instructors who are using or comfortable using an EHR in the classroom. And that's really what we want to focus in on today. With the right EHR, you can really enhance your Med-Surg course, your fundamentals course, even your pharm course. Really, this can be used in any nursing course. We want to drill into Med-Surg today. So let's talk a little bit about how you would really go about getting started, how you would really begin to use an EHR program in one of your courses. So you know, whatever textbook you're using, if you're using one of the textbooks from F.A. Davis or Medical Surgical Nursing by Janice Hoffman and Nancy Sullivan, or if you're using our PN, Understanding Medical Surgical Nursing, you already have a lot of exceptional patients, really robust case studies in those textbooks. And using an EHR is a way to make the didactic content in the text more applicable to a clinical situation, really play upon those case studies. So you can take this patient a step further and bring the case study to life by going to visit this patient in the hospital with EHR Tutor. So now let's think about this. A student's done the assigned reading. So let's say you're using Medical Surgical Nursing. This is our brand new Med-Surg textbook. And your students are reading through Chapter 32, Coordinating Care for Patients with Vascular Disorders. So there's an unfolding case study within that chapter that's dealing with hypertension. So let's see how we can really take that case study to the next level. So once students have completed their reading, you're now in the classroom, you're going over the content, making sure everyone's up to speed with what they had read, and you're talking more specifically about some of these patients. So you can pull up EHR Tutor and walk through one of the patient charts that's already in the program for you to illustrate some of the key points that came up during that case study as it ties back to this specific disorder. So you can pull up Namwin's chart, you can evaluate her meds, walk through the assessment, see that she was diagnosed with hypertension and diabetes. You can continue through that diagnosis for weight loss and exercise. So this is a great way for you to review with the class and then have the students go ahead and work in EHR Tutor on an individual basis. So in addition to being able to pull up these charts that are tied to F.A. Davis content within EHR Tutor, we also have activities already in the program for you to use. So there's hundreds of activities in EHR Tutor that are designed specifically around each step of the nursing process. And you can go ahead and assign these activities to your students to really help them think more critically about the patients that are included. So we want to help your students make the jump from reading about a disorder and then relating it to a specific scenario or a specific patient, and then walking through what steps they should be taking as a nurse to help them establish those good clinical decision-making skills. We know that successful nurses need to have good decision-making skills, and we want to establish that skill set in our students as early as we can in their nursing education so that they can continue to practice applying this knowledge as they're applying it to actual patient scenarios. So within EHR Tutor, you already have those activities and the patients ready to go for you. You also can create your own patients and activities like Diane will show you when she jumps into the program for us. So being able to create your own, this is great if you have a story or a patient that you always bring up when you're talking about hypertension, that you can have that pulled into EHR Tutor and create the activities that really go along with the story that you're telling your students. So this is a way to get students familiar with the process of using electronic documentation and also those best practices. So we used to think that students get a lot of practice during clinical, but with HIPAA regulations, changing rules at a lot of our clinical sites, that's not always the case. So we're giving students more exposure to electronic documentation in the classroom so that they're more prepared for when they're actually going to start documenting when they're working. They're going to get a better handle on what they should be expecting if they are doing that documentation during their clinical experience, or if you have them document the patients they're visiting for your school, not just at the clinical site. So Diane will show this to us shortly, but there's even a place in EHR Tutor for students to input their care plans. This is great if you're having them create care plans that go along with some of the case studies they're reading about in their textbooks. You have flexibility to organize the care plans as you prefer, but this is a nice way to help get students more comfortable with working within an EHR. It's even an easy way for you to grade and to share feedback with your students. So our overall goal here is to provide a realistic electronic charting experience that's going to cover every aspect of nursing care, as well as give you the patients and scenarios that help illustrate the key concepts that you're going to be covering in your Med-Surg course. So in addition to the EHR, you're also getting all of that content that you need to have this up and running for you and your students. It comes with those patient scenarios and activities. This is also something that can work at the RN and at the LPN level. So it's flexible to fit how your program wants to approach documentation. Like I had mentioned earlier, the scenario that I had referenced was from our RN level textbook. We also have our LPN level text from Williams and Hopper also included on the screen. So if anyone has any additional questions about those texts, if you would like to take a look at a copy, I know some of you on this call today are already using both of those products. You can fill that information in at the survey at the end of the call. We're happy to set you up with a review copy and with access. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Diane to talk a little bit more about EHR Tutor and take us into the program.
Okay, hello. Is everybody hearing me okay?
Yep, you sound great. Thanks, Diane.
Okay, great. And my screen should be showing up, I believe. So, all right, the next thing I would like to do, my name is Diane, and I was a nursing instructor for about 15 years. I also trained electronic health records for about 8, and during that time talked to many instructors who told me how electronic health records were starting to change the way they did their clinicals because they weren't having the ability to be able to to input their information when they were at the clinical sometimes because of rules that they were not going to get access out to the students, and also the way they did their labs and their sim labs, and in the classroom being able to talk about patients. From that came EHR Tutor, and so I'd like to take you on a little tour to see how you can utilize EHR Tutor in your Med-Surg class along with the books from F.A. Davis. So what I have done right now is I've built a course, and I'm in a student view right now, and this course has one of the F.A. Davis patients in here, and it's an evaluation of pneumonia. And our patient's name is May Wynn. I'm going to open up her chart. First of all, to go to the activity, I can see the instructions that were built here for us to see how her changes are taking place over a period of a day after her admission. So we're supposed to go and see what our assessment is on here. So we're going to go and click on May Wynn and open up her chart. When I open up May Wynn's chart, you're going to see it looks very similar, a lot of the same similar things that you will see in the clinical area. This is an inpatient chart. Over here we have all the tabs where you can go and seek information or chart information on the side. We have basic information about May Wynn up at the top. And you'll see that this patient has been built with a fair amount of information on her. We can have vital signs that we can take a look at to see if there's any changes taking place. And May Wynn just happens to have a CVA and pneumonia. As we scroll down, you'll see we even have a complete set of admission orders. This is just like being in the hospital, taking a virtual trip to the hospital. You can open this chart just like we're doing right now and project it onto the board and talk about concepts that you've just completed during your lecture, during class, or maybe what the students read about last night. At the bottom, we'll also see that we can see the most current labs showing up here related to this patient. So a lot of information just from the patient summary, which is the first tab that we're looking at. You'll notice that it looks like all of this has just happened recently. You'll see it looks like vital signs were done just a couple minutes ago. I'm in Eastern time, in case you're wondering. And it looks like there was also a fair amount of information entered yesterday. So you can actually build patients or utilize patients and have it look as though things are currently happening. So it's really like taking a virtual trip to the hospital and seeing what's happening at this time. This gives that little bit of urgency, realism to it when we're pulling these charts, and it appears to all be relevant to the current dates and times. And patients are built that way. You do not have to go back and tweak them. If we were to go through here, you'll see that you could go through and find information about this patient in more detail. We saw the labs at the bottom of the patient summary, but the labs are actually entered here in the results area. And you'll see where they were entered here with the students, the nurse's name at the top, and also with the date and time that that information was entered in. One of the things that I think is very nice is that when we're looking at the chart, if we go to the imaging results, you can even upload pictures. And here we can see the findings of the x-ray, and we can actually view the x-ray that was done. So instructors have the ability to upload images for students to be able to see within a charting format. This was a chart, like I said, that was built from F.A. Davis, and they did provide that information. It has a great look to it. Gives you the ability that you can build back in time so that you can show trends, and that's always a really important thing for a student to be able to see, that nursing needs to be able to look at information and make decisions on when to call doctors, how to tweak the care that they're given, and it gives them that ability to do it in a very realistic way, even if they're not at the hospital. Other places I'd like to take and show you, if we go to our notes, we'll see that this patient has had several notes written on them that was built with this patient. So students can go and glean information about the patient. So rather than telling them a story in class, or having them read an article about a patient and then come back and draw decisions from it, this gives them the ability to go into a chart, which is the way a nurse or any clinician is going to find out information about their patient. They never go to PowerPoints, and they never go to articles or little index cards that have been handed out to them. So this puts them immediately into the clinical point of view and into that mindset when you're talking to them about this patient. So it's a great way of introducing any patient that you're talking about. To read the charts, you just click on the button, and to collapse them, you use the minus button to collapse it, and you'll see you can read all of the notes. Flow sheets, we can go in here. We could look at all the admission information, or if you were doing this as a simulation or in a skills lab, the students can actually go in on a chart and enter information related to an admission. So it can be used in multiple ways. People use this in simulation, where the students can chart what they're doing. They use it in skills lab to chart all of their skills, and they use it in clinical for students to put information and care plans in. People buy us for simulation, and they love us for care plan. We're doing their clinicals a lot of times. So anyway, so this is an idea of the type of information you're going to see. You're going to see it looks very realistic to what you see at the hospital. Okay, that being said, let me take you to a couple more of the flow sheets that we have available. You'll see that we have the ability that you can do things from as easily as ADLs and daily care, all the way to the different interventions and blood administration and behavioral health assessments that you may also do. Assessments are always a very big deal, especially in Med-Surg. We learn all the different sides and symptoms, and we'll see that this patient was actually built with several assessments on them already, so we can see any progression or any trends that are happening with the patient. So you can start having your students doing critical thinking even before they start going to the clinicals. So that's one of the nice features here. One of the things that we also have the ability to do is if you have times when you're doing medication administration, or if you just wanted to talk about meds the patient with these disease processes may be taking, you would be able to bring them here to see the orders and to talk about why might this patient be on these medications. Again, bringing the concepts that you're teaching into a critical thinking arena so that the students can not only experience what they think should be done, but be able to see how you look at this chart. And that's something we can't always do at the clinical when we're there for such a short period of time with so many students. So anyway, we do barcoding, so if that's very realistic, whenever you have the students practicing giving some of these meds. Other things that we have available, I'm going to end on the care plan because there's so much I could show you. You can see that this patient already has a care plan started. Students can go in and update the care plan or create new nursing diagnosis by clicking on the new diagnosis button. Data entry is really just a matter of putting new entries into any page that the student needs to chart on, so it's very easy to do. If you wanted to go back and grade what the students see, it's one of our great features. I don't think I wrote anything. Hang on a minute. Let me go ahead and just put something in here so we can see what it looks like. Sorry about that. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to put a temperature on her. You're going to see when I come to the vital signs flow sheet, putting an entry on here is as easy as clicking on the new entry button. When you do that, a new column is created with your initials and current date and time. I'm just going to put one piece of information here so that we're going to be able to see what it looks like when we go to do the grading here. Okay, when I go to my instructor view and I want to see what the students have done, I'm going to go to my course list. This is where I built this Med-Surg course so that we could see the activity that students can do. Instructors can build as many courses as they need to accomplish, meet all their needs with the various levels of students. I'm going to go to the course. When I go here, this is my activity that I added. I'm going to click on grade charting. When I click on grade charting, I'm the only student in here right now, and you'll see when I last updated this chart, and I can view and grade charting. When I open this, this is the student's own copy of this chart. Every student will have their own copy of it, so they can do their assignments. When I click on this, and my computer's running slow, I can see exactly where the students have charted because it's highlighted in yellow. And when I go to that flow sheet, even the area that they charted in is in yellow. So it's very easy for an instructor to be able to go through a chart and put the grading in here. They can then put their feedback up at the top so the students can see this. They can give it a grade if they, however they grade, whether it's in pass, fail, or numbers or points. And then they can move on to the next student. So it's very, very, very easy. Students can come back and update or fix information that was entered in error that needs to have a better job done on it. And you'll see that your comments and your grades would show up here, and you can make your comments. I've seen instructors write books on this, especially after clinical. So anyway, that's how grading works. A couple other features I'm going to show you before we leave is that in our patient chart library, which is where all the master patients live, we have over 90 patients, and over 65 of those patients belong to F.A. Davis. And an instructor can go in and utilize any of these charts and attach them to activities for their students to be able to use. You'll see FA Davis has quite a few charts in here. As I said, they have over 65 charts of their own in here. The next thing I want to show you is the activity library. The activity library has over 300 activities to match the patients that FA Davis has created in the system so that you will be able to have your students participate in different ways depending on what your goals are. Different patients will meet different needs that you have. I'm going to go and look for this patient that we were watching before, which is May Wynn. And we'll see that not only did she have the activity associated with her that I had added, but she has various other ones that meet different needs at different areas of the nursing process. So if I wanted to talk about the assessment of a CVA and I wanted to add this activity to my course, all I would need to do is click on this button, and I could click the Add to Course button, choose my Med-Surg, and that activity is automatically added, and the students now have the ability that they could go in and do that activity also. So it's very, very, very easy to do. You can also build your own charts if you have stories that you tell. And I think I've given you a quick overview, at least to understand some of the functionality that we have here. Remember, students can enter charting just like they do in the hospital, and you can build charts so that the students have information that they can go in just as though you were seeing patients at the hospital. So it has multiple uses. I think that's just about everything that I have, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Julie and Lyra. And
awesome, Diane. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so I have one question coming in from an instructor, and I'm going to wait to see if anyone has any more. But Diane, if you could help me answer this one. Is there a conversion available for Canadian values? And I believe this question was asked when you were going over the flow chart in EHR Tutor.
I'm assuming if we were looking there, you're looking to see if the metric system is there. And in all of the measurements we have, we allow you to do things in Celsius and Fahrenheit. And all the measurements related to weight and height are going to give you both in the standard and in the metric system.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that for us. The only other question I see came into my chat box, and it was asking on how they can get a one-on-one demo, and I was just about to go over that for you guys and kind of wrap up our presentation today. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your morning to check out EHR Tutor and hear from Julia and Diane this morning and see how EHR Tutor can work with our Hoffman or Williams and Hopper textbook to really enhance your Med-Surg curriculum. And in just a few moments, you're going to see that survey that I mentioned earlier that's going to pop up on your screen. And we hope that you guys can share a couple thoughts and some feedback for us and let us know if you'd like to learn more. And we've really only kind of scratched the surface here today on the many features and benefits that EHR Tutor can provide for you in your classroom. So if you're interested in a more in-depth walkthrough of EHR Tutor, feel free to contact us at the web address right there on the screen, or fill out that survey and let us know right there. If you're interested in any bundling options, you can also fill out that survey and let us know what you'd be interested in. So we're here to help, and we want to make everything as easy as possible. So feel free to reach out to us with any questions and comments you might have. And we look forward to hearing from you soon, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.